Lesson 5.7, Equations and Inequalities with Rational Numbers. In example 1, solve an equation by clearing fractions. So if you look at our fractions, we have a 4, a 10, and a 5 in the denominator. So to clear that, we want to multiply each side by the LCD of the fractions. So remember what 4, 10, and 5, I'm going to do the upside down birthday cake. This is 2. At least 2 of them have to go into it. 5 just bring down because it doesn't divide by 2. And then we have 5 we can bring out. 2 just bring down. That's 1 and 1. We multiply the left side and the bottom. 5 times 2 is 10, times 2 is 20, times 1 is still 20. So we'll multiply each side by 20. Okay, now we use the distributive property to distribute out the 20. So 20 into 1/4 x. Bring down the plus sign. 20 times 3/10, and then just bring down the 20 times 2/5. You can go ahead and put that, multiply those fractions together. 20 times 1/4 is 5. And really what you're doing here is just taking the 20 and multiplying by the numerator. So you have 20 over 4, which is 5. You have 20 times 3, which is 60 over 10, which is 6. And then 20 times 2, which is 40 over 5. Simplify that, and you have 8. Now this problem definitely looks a little bit better to solve than the fractions. This is a two-step problem. So first thing we have to do is clear the constant. To clear the constant, add the opposite or subtract. The 6 is the constant, so subtract 6 or add a -6 to both sides. 6's go away on the left. 8 minus 6 is 2. Second step of a two-step problem is divide each side by the coefficient. Okay, so we are clearing the coefficient. The coefficient works with the variable. It is the 5. Divide each side by 5. Your answer is x equals 2/5. Solve these equations by first clearing the fractions. Remember, to do that, you have to multiply by the LCD and then solve a two-step. Actually, in between there, you might have to use distributive property to simplify. Pause the video and try 1 and 2 by yourself so you get some practice with solving these types of problems. 3, 6, and 9 all divide by 3. And that's it. So 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is 18. So we're going to multiply by 18. Well, 18 over 3x is going to give me 6x. Again, all you have to do is the numerator times the LCD, which is 18. You have 90 over 6, and 90 over 6 is going to be 15. 18 times 7 is 126, divided by 9 is going to be 14, so that equals 14. Solve a two-step, clear the constant. Here's the variable, the constant's 15. Subtract or add a negative, that's the same thing, to both sides of the equal sign. -1 equals 6x, divide by the coefficient, x equals -1/6. For number 2, 10, 15, and 3, I can divide by 3. 10 doesn't divide by 3, so just bring it down. 5, and this is 1. Divide by a 5. 2, 1, 1. Multiply 3 times 2. Oh, well, 3 times 5 is 15. Times 2 is 30, and then times 1 is still 30. So I'm multiplying by 30. Then you take that number and multiply it by the numerators, essentially. So 30 times 3, 90 over 10, which is just 9. Bring down the minus. 30 times 7, well, 3 times 7 is 21, so add the 0. 210 divided by 15 is 14, x. And then 30 times 2 is 60 over 3, you have 20. Here's your 2-step. Change that to a negative. You don't have to, but sometimes I like to do it. Subtract the constant, or add the opposite. If it was a negative, you'd add a positive. But this is a positive, so I subtract or add a negative. Either way works. You're left with negative 14x equals 11. Divide by the coefficient. Your answer is, and you can see that this is going to stay a fraction because it doesn't divide evenly into each other. So negative 11/14. In example 2, we're going to solve an equation by clearing the decimals. Okay, to clear the decimals, we have to look at the place values, or the number of decimal places in each of the terms. So if you look, there are 2 decimal places here, 2 here, and 1 here. The greatest number of decimal places is the 2. Don't even worry about the 1, but 2 is the greatest number. You're looking for the greatest number of decimal places. We're going to multiply each side of the equation by, well, what's the place value for 2? 10 to the second power, which is indeed 100. Basically, just think about this number, the number of place values tells you how many zeros to put in the power of 10. So multiply 2 and 75 thousandths by 100, 6 and 15 thousandths by 100, and 4, and that's essentially what you're doing. You don't even need to do this trivial property if you automatically just say, I need to multiply both of these by 100. And that's what they did here. Basically what that does is, because of the 2 decimal places, that turns 2.75, 2 and 75 thousandths, into 275. And it turns the 6 and 15 thousandths into 615. But what about the 4 tenths? Well, if you think about it, I could add a 0 at the end, and now how many place values does it have? 2. So it becomes 40. Remember to bring down the variable. Here's your 2-step. Constant is 615, so we're going to subtract 615 from both sides. You get negative 340 on the left. The 6/15 cancels to leave 40m. Divide by the coefficient. Remember, 40 is the coefficient. 40's cancel. Negative 340 divided by 40 is negative 8.5. Negative 8 and 5 tenths. In example 3, we're going to solve an inequality with fractions. Describe the possible values of x if the area of the rectangle is at least 24 square inches. So the area has to be at least 24. So it can't be 23, it has to be 24 or higher. So my length is going to be, well, 2/5 times x plus 2. We multiply that by the width of 6, and it has to be greater than the 24. Let's multiply the 6, distributive property here, by the 2/5. So 2/5 times 6 is 12/5. bring down the variable. 2 times 6 is 12, and bring down the 24. This is a two-step problem. Before I move on, here's the constant. So we're going to subtract 12 from each side. 12s go away. You're left with 12/5. X is greater than or equal to, because it can be 24, 12. And now think back to the previous section, 5.6. How do you get rid of a fraction? You multiply by its reciprocal to both sides. Or reciprocal is called your multiplicative inverse. Those cancel. You're left with x is greater than or equal to, and we don't flip the sign because it was a positive 12/5. 5/12 times 12 is 5. So the possible values of x are going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, basically 5 or more. We can solve an equality the same way by clearing the fractions using the LCD. So just like before, find the LCD of 6, 12, and 6. That's going to be 12, so we multiply. And see, I kind of cut out this step if you noticed in the last examples. I just go ahead and multiply each fraction by 12. (12 times negative 1, 6). So you're just doing 12 times 1, so that's negative 12 divided by 6 is negative 2m. Again, do 12 times 5. 60 divided by 12 is 5, and that's less than or equal to 12 times 5 again is 60 divided by 6 is going to be, and that's a negative 10. Here's your two-step problem. The constant is the 5, but be careful, there's a subtraction here. So we want to add the opposite to clear it. If you want to change it right away to adding a negative, then you should be able to see that the opposite is adding 5 to both sides. The 5's clear on the left. Negative 2m is less than or equal to negative 5. Simplify that. Divide by the coefficient of negative 2. The negative 2's cross out. Because we had a negative coefficient, what happens to the symbol? It flips. So m is greater than or equal to 5/2. You can keep it as an improper fraction, or you can change it into a mixed number. Either way works. Please pause the video and try number 3 and 4. Remember, 1 is not a fraction, but there isn't 1 underneath, so you can find the LCD, which is actually, nothing divides into it, it's just going to be 33. So I'm multiplying every number here by 33. You have 132 over 11x plus 33 is less than 66 over 3. That simplifies to 12x plus 33 is less than 22. Clear the constant. You have negative 11. Divide by the coefficient. You have x is less than negative 11/12. For number 4, 7, 4, and 2, well, we can divide out of 2. And then we do the LCD is 28. Multiply all these numbers by 28. You end up with 84/7 x, which is 12x, plus 28 over 4, which is 7, and 28 over 2, which simplifies to 14. Clear, this is just like a two-step, don't even worry about the inequality. Divide, and you have x is less than 7/12.